So, today is October 17th, 2018. As you probably have heard, Canada's just enacted some new laws that begin today, and I just thought, since everyone's talking about it, I might do a little project just to welcome all the people who are happy about this to the new freedoms they're going to be enjoying. So, check it out. So we had an old love seat that was falling apart and we didn't like enough to fix up, that we wound up getting rid of. But I took off all the little bits that I thought maybe one day I could do something with. I always thought I might be able to make a pattern for something out of some of these pieces. What I did, I took one of these guys, cut that off, cut that in two. My hacksaw just going very slow and deliberate. Cut the knob off the end. I sanded draft onto here and here, so I have a parting line. Took a piece of this stuff, I cut that in two, sanded a bit of a reverse draft on there. So we have a core print. I drilled a couple holes in, just using a drill, trying to go pretty much straight down. I stuck them back together. I drilled through a little bit, just to, not all the way through. Made some of these pins. Now this guy, see, I kind of botched the drilling there. Make a core box. That. Lots of room at the end for venting. That's alright. For venting, I've got draft on there too. I'll have to file these down a little bit later so they slip in and out a little easier. But not yet. This should be good, I guess. Let that dry. There we go. This is going to be the core print. So if this is bulging up into one side of it a little bit, it's still going to be able to support the core, no problem. It doesn't have to be perfect here. I do have to fill this hole in though. That separates very nicely now. Okay. I'm going to call that square enough. Once this side's dry, this will still be able to pin into the other side, and then I can line up this one against that so they're perfectly lined up, and use that as my way to glue this onto here. Well, the glue dried and I got a little ahead of myself. I clamped these two together so that they match up as best as I could, and use the alignment pins to get this second piece glued in place, glued to the core print, glued onto this half of the pattern. So I'll just have to let that dry now. Then we'll see if I've glued it all together or if it'll still come apart in two pieces, split that way and not that way. There we go. Our pattern is complete. Well, I drew out this template. Thought it looked like a decent shape, at least for a starting place. Traced it out onto here. I was getting ready to cut it out, but then I thought, you know, it's going to be a lot of sanding, because I kind of want the finished blade to be about this thick. I think it's a 1/4 inch Baltic birch plywood. So I was digging through my pattern making stuff, and I found this, some kind of plexiglass or something. It says maybe saw, cut, drilled, blah blah blah. Transparent stuff. Be a lot less sanding. I could just, it's only 1/8 of an inch, so it's perfect. I can make my split pattern, put some draft on the edges, and then just worry about any grinding after the fact. I won't have to make compound curves, try and make them even like I did with the other guys. It's just going to be a straight on aluminum bronze blade on this one. It's going to be like a throwing hawk type deal. Should be fun. And for scale, it's just a small blade. We'll see how it goes. Well, it works on styrofoam. Let's see if it works on this plastic stuff. I realized I drew out two of the same side, so just to have the outline on it drawn in for when I can sand some draft onto this thing. I'm gonna retrace it to the flip side of it. The way my sanders work, the table tilts down. So if I sand up to the line I'm going to trace on here, the draft is going to be set up so that the side with the drawing on it will be the parting line. It's a nice change to have that not matter, because it's evenly thick throughout the whole thing this time, which just makes things a little easier. Pattern making and even for molding. So these will be the parting line, the parting faces. Right. Just to remind me. Well, so I trimmed them down to near the line, but look what I went and did. After all that, I was supposed to trace this one with the saw, and look, I cut right over it. And I have to redraw this one. Luckily there's enough. But jeez, what a dum-dum, right? That looks about right, but there's a little... Now that I've sanded these down and gotten them as close to mirror image of each other as possible, I've gone and drilled a small hole here and here through the one on the close side here and clamped them together, lined up as good as I can get them, so that I can drill out the shallow hole in the other side, hopefully not poke through, for alignment pins. So this is how I got them lined up so that the holes are going to match once they're unclamped. I think that might be about as deep as I dare to go. I'm not going to press my luck. These holes are 1/8 inch. They better line up. They seem like they do still. Well, my handles came in. I ordered them because I'm not a woodworker, and I figure I found some that were reasonably cheap, and they're probably all fairly close to the same. So I picked the ones that were the most the same, because this one's a little bit less flared at the tip. These are about the same though, so I cut this piece off of one of them to use to make the core box, and also to use as the core print. And I will, sculpt the eye around this after I first make the core box. Then I'll split it. I eyeballed the center line with Sharpie, sanded some draft on there. I didn't sand this one yet because it's going to be stuck at the end of the core box, flush up against the Lego. You guys saw how I made this core box already for this core. I made another one the exact same way, using the same Lego and hydrostone plaster to make a mold of this, which is going to be used for the core prints. And I'll make the cores in that. So now it's time to sculpt the eye onto it, and as you can see, I've split it, but because I didn't want to lose the original thickness to this kerf that was cut out with my little hacksaw, I glued these pins in that go all the way into the holes in the other side before I finish this cut. So now that gap is preserved, so that the core print won't be too tight. Let me see if we can see that gap's pretty consistent. So here's the took a bunch of sheets of paper. Now it's now it'll close up again, pretty much close enough. So that's all ready to go. So I'm gonna get some of the epoxy putty. The white part in the middle and the blue part wrapped around it. You cut off some, you smush it all together till it all turns one color, and then you can kind of sort of sculpt with it a little bit. I just use this plastic tube and just a little bit of this grease. It's the same grease I use in my Muller wheel. Anyhow, use that little bit of that grease on my fingers to help me mix it up without getting it all stuck to me. And this plastic tube is pretty good for smoothing it out. Once it cured, I did file it down a little bit, but it all sits nice and flat now. It still needs a little more, it's still a little rough around here, and it needs a little bit more additions of putty, here, a few little other places. So the next step is going to be to get some putty going on the other side to match it. Hopefully without, gluing them together. It'll be a little more difficult to do it without a flat table underneath it than it was to do the first side, but that's what it'll look like. Yeah, making progress. The only thing is, it didn't really stick to the wood like I was hoping it would. So I'm gonna have to glue that, or maybe drill some holes from inside into the putty and pin it and glue it, just to be sure it doesn't fall apart on me. Well, I added a little more putty here and here. I could file it down once it's fully cured. And as you can see, I hot glued the top half of the pattern. This one in particular was a little wobbly, so once I get some putty in there, I put a little bit just with some of the leftovers already. But I also greased the flat side of the bottom half here so that more putty won't just glue the two halves together, hopefully. But everything's all lined up perfect for me to start adding putty to this side. Well, I didn't get much putty sculpting footage. Sorry guys, my camera was acting up. Seems to be okay now. I added on some little bits after to fill in some little holes that they didn't really stick well. They survived sanding, they peeled out, so I grabbed the stinky putty again, the green stuff, not green stuff, but it is green and it is stuff. I filled in the little hole from where I drilled it wrong, so I already sanded these down, they're pretty smooth. I might try some green putty in those just to clean these up a bit too. There's just one on that side. It's like, I think I've got it fairly uniform, symmetrical, I mean. Still a little rough in there, I might smooth that out a little bit more. But yeah. Whoops. Well, it's close anyway. I'm gonna say close enough. So once I sand this off, I'll be ready for some paint, I guess. They can be a little bumpier because it'll just be like a little space next to the core, but they can't dip in or the core won't fit. Yeah, once it dries I can sand it back down. This is the one where the blade was a little out of alignment. So what I did was once the first kind of rough layer of paint, which I've since sanded, was dry, I put this one down with a little bit of weight on here to try and flex this back into where it belonged once I glued the loose putty back to the wood. But all that happened was that the blade popped right off it. So I had to super glue it back on. I think it's much more secure now. And I did some sanding of the paint. I realized I need to add some fillets in a few spots. It should just help with molding it a little bit and help avoid getting any hot tearing when I cast it. But so for now it needs another coat of paint, and then it'll be I think it'll be all ready to go. Hey, look everybody, World Traveler and SW Dweeb are hanging out together in my front hall.